record on this. Okay, I've hit the record button, and by staying on this call, you consent to being recorded, right? The only way this will be used is on our PhirSe YouTube channel, so it's just for the PhirSe group. All right, so as rules for the audience, I'm just going to say, please keep your video and audio off in case there are any bandwidth or internet issues. I keep getting messages that my internet is going off at any time, so I hope that doesn't happen. All right, and then put any questions on chat. We will get to hopefully all of them before we end today. This series, the Leadership Fireside Chat series, brings each episode with one female industry leader and one male industry leader. The focus is on storytelling, because it's through storytelling that we as humans learn the best. And the idea is to bring to you people with experiences that you can benefit from. Our industry is going through an unprecedented time, and it requires us to come together as a community to share our experience so that people can benefit. That's the idea. Today's episode, if you were on the call last month, we talked about layoffs. We talked about how to handle the layoffs from an emotional standpoint, how to handle those negative feelings and put them behind you. What is the next step after that? It is about pivots. It's about career transitions for a lot of us. A lot of us have been there, done that. The two industry leaders we're bringing to you today, Saritha Suresh has herself gone through plenty of career pivots, and so has Rahul. We'll talk about each of those in detail. I'll just give a little bit of introduction on how I met these two panelists. I met Saritha at a party, and before I met her face-to-face, I didn't know much about her. We started talking about books and about the electronic vehicle industry, and I learned so much about her. She has moved from, normally people move from technical to the business side, but she's moved from the business to the technical side. And she's a leader in data and analytics at a company called Rivian, which everybody knows, right? I mean, I'm sure many of us are buying stock of that company. But Saritha, would you like to say something more formal in terms of your introduction?
Sure. Thank you, Paroma. So it was interesting how we met, and then the one thing that bound us was really books, and this kind of took from there. But a quick introduction about myself. I've been in the data analytics space since, I would say, really core data analytics space since 2015. But before that, I was in product. Analytics was part of my job, but wasn't the core. Currently, I'm at Rivian. I'm leading their finance data analytics function, and I'm part of the CFO org there. A lot of what we do is really about setting the stage on how we can harness data, etc. Before that, I was at PayPal and at Visa. So I was in the financial services industry for almost 15, 16 years before I moved to Rivian in 2021. That's about me. Grew up in India, studied in India. All my education has been in India. Do not have a US degree. I'll come to that hopefully in my conversation too. That's part of my career pivoting as well. But that's generally my background. Here I work in Palo Alto at the Rivian office. I live in Redwood City. That's kind of a little bit about me. I love reading. I love dancing. A lot of things. I'm into multiple interests. I love exploring new interests as I go along.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Saritha. That shows us your human side, which will play into a lot in how we handle pivots, right? I'm sure. Coming to Rahul, everybody knows Rahul. Is there anybody who doesn't know Rahul? There's nobody that doesn't know Rahul. I think I first met Rahul on one of our PhirSe hikes. And of course, I only much later learned that he's a general manager of sales at Wipro, and he's executed multiple pivots from operations to sales and beyond. But for me, he is a very down-to-earth person who comes across with his kindness, with his desire to help, and always being there, not just for friends, but anybody who reaches out to him. So Rahul, can you please tell us some more formal introduction to yourself?
Thank you, Paroma. I hope you can hear me properly. Thank you. So been in the industry for 25 years. As I always said, don't want to date myself, but 25 years is this year, June. I will be completing, started my journey in 1998. In industry, like in terms of the pivots, I worked across various industry domains. I started my career with retail and then moved on to some of the media. Was happy to work with Viacom and New York. Then moved on to the banking. So in the last 13 years, been in the banking industry. But within banking industry, I've changed my functional roles more from a delivery execution perspective to sales and marketing. I stay in Fremont. In terms of other hobbies, I enjoy singing for sure. I enjoy running. I enjoy playing badminton. And my aim is half marathon to 2 half marathons this year. Hopefully, I will be able to complete it. That's about me.
Wonderful. I love it. Let me introduce myself. I'm Paroma. I live in Foster City. I've been in the industry, in the business for 17, 18 years. I work for SAP. I'm a VP of marketing right now. But the way career pivots have played into my journey, I used to work for a semiconductor company. That was my first job. And I've experienced layoffs happen to multiple colleagues. When they kept happening year on year, I realized that I have to move up the value chain from hardware into software, where back then it used to happen less, not as frequently. And I pivoted my career multiple times, going from hardware to licensing business and eventually enterprise software with SAP. It was very intentional, the choices I made and the recruiters I said no to, who would reach out, to me with very similar roles. And I was like, no, I'm going to do something different each time. It took a lot to say no to those things because they were very financially lucrative. But if I hadn't said no, then I wouldn't be here. And I love what I do. So that is what it drives me. It's a part of my identity. But the journey has not been always very clear, very straight. It's been very left turn, right turn, and all over the place, right? But I've learned from it. It keeps me humble. And I feel that these experiences are what can help the community at a time like now. All right, with that introduction, let's jump straight into the first question of today, which is, and we'll start today with Rahul. Rahul, please share a career pivot you have experienced, how you executed it, and the insights you gained from that experience.
Sure, Paroma. The career pivot which you're talking about, more of a functional change. When I joined the industry, like I'm a comm science graduate. And apparently I have comm science and management postgraduate degree, which is, we call it MCM, right, in India. So throughout study in India, joined as an engineer with Tata's, definitely a very good training in terms of, and did my career progression throughout, has been, I think, top ranker throughout, got moved pretty fast and went into delivery execution, which is typically called as IT execution. More on to say program management, project management stream, but keeping the technical side intact, right? I did keep my certification up to date, was pretty technical as a program management project manager. The biggest change which came my way was moving on to sales and marketing, right? And when I say that, that is a very different thought process in itself. I could say that in delivery and execution, you're always worried about that, hey, how are you going to deliver it back to the customers, right? But in sales and marketing, your approach totally changes. You are much ahead in the life cycle. You are interacting with the customers, and you have a lot of quota on your head, right? That you have to meet quarterly quotas, you have to meet yearly targets, so on and so forth. I think that mindset is very, very different. There are a lot of learnings. If you ask me about learnings, is that the learnings first is the language. It is very important that when you change from a one kind of point of view to another point of view, how much do you understand a language which is spoken in that functional change which is there? For example, you need to understand what quota is, right? You need to understand what pipeline is. You need to understand more about that. How will you meet your pipelines? What are the parameters on which you would be evaluated, right, compared to what you were doing before? So that's one of the biggest thing, which in my view was my learning, is language. I struggled, definitely. It is not an easy when you change it. I used to struggle. I used to go and research. I used to come back. I used to talk to my peers. I used to talk to my seniors. And it is very, very important. My another learning from the change in pivot is also you need to know the new org pretty well, where you're going, right? In terms of new org, is there has to be, I don't call it a godfather, but there has to be someone who is always by your side. Maybe in a sort of buddy system, which I really love moving. I don't make a change unless I'm comfortable with it. I was pretty risk averse when I was moving towards sales and marketing, because your job, you can get fired if you don't meet your quota, right? So how to overcome the fear, that was the second learning which I had. That's the second thing which I would say. The third thing which was there, definitely, there's a difference between a concept of instant gratification versus delayed gratification, right? That's very, very important for you to understand. So that was my, I would say, third learning. So these are three major things which I would say my learnings when I change kind of or pivoted from one role to the other role.
Got it. Let me ask you one more thing, Rahul. What drove you to switch from operations to sales? Why did you make that switch?
Very honestly, money. So I will be very honest. What I was earning when I came to US, like it was hand to mouth, very honestly. And if I really want to what I was doing, and I was seeing that I can get more if I move towards sales side, there's a risk involved, definitely. But money was my biggest driver, I would say.
Very nice. And that's the clarity around this is really commendable. I love that. So now we move to Saritha. Saritha, similar question. Please tell us about a career pivot you experienced, how you executed it, and any insights or learnings that we can all learn from.
Yeah, so I am, like, if you look at my career, I've had a very non-linear trajectory. I would call it, mine was more like pivot up, I would call it, because when I came here in the US after, I worked in India for a couple of years, and I moved here after I got married. And I started from nothing. I was on an H4, right? I was working in India, and then I left my job, and it was not a happy decision for me. I was miserable. Because I was always someone with a very clear mindset that I wanted to work. That's the independence that my parents had instilled in me. So it was very important for me. So I started as a contractor, and I found a job at Visa. That's kind of how I started. And then I became an FTE at Visa. Now, I started in the product org. And there, my role was really, I was working with the product consulting team. And my initial couple of years at Visa was purely focusing on how do we build stories for our clients, because Visa is a B2B company. So there's a lot of like client interactions. I was working very closely with the the director of product consulting, and then in turn, our account executives, sales, etc. So I was working very closely with your counterparts on the Visa side. Rahul, when I started off, that was how I started. After a couple of years, like it just kind of, there was a natural progression to my career, because to me, a lot of my career growth pivoting, I would call it a little bit organic, a little bit intentional, because as I kind of stepped into my role, then I learned how things could be improved. I was also very particular about investing in myself. So in terms of learning. So as part of consulting, when I was there, I realized that, okay, data is important because you're presenting a story. We are doing benchmarks. We are telling a story when we are comparing our clients against each other. That's kind of how I started getting more into the system side, tool side, because how do you automate this? How do you scale? Then I slowly started working with our IT counterparts. So, and as I kind of grew in that, I would say evolved in that role, I had to, at some point, I had to make a decision. I realized that I can't be into both at the same time, like product and as well as in analytics and data technology. At a point, I had to pick a path to grow in my career. So I very intentionally, at that point, I thought about it quite a lot. And I saw that if I stuck in product, I could see the path that I would lead me. And that's not where I wanted to be, because I'm more of a, by nature, I'm more of a solutioning person. I thrive on that solution, building a solution and implementing it. That's where I find my personal gratification on a day-to-day basis. That's what motivates me. So I chose to go with the system side. So then my next career, the pivot that I executed was I actually went back to my original the VP who hired me initially at Visa, and I told him he was heading analytics at Visa at the time. So to Rahul's point, having the connection, maintaining the connection, your mentorships, your connections within the organization, your champions matter. So I actually literally went back to him and I said, this is what I'm looking to do. Is there an opportunity in your organization? And so he actually gave, that was the first time I became a people manager. He not only gave me the ability to move to analytics, but he also gave me a better position. That's when I became, director at Visa is more like a senior manager in most companies. I became a senior manager and then I started managing people. But then with that, I got the edge in the platform to do more of analytics. And that's kind of how I built my career. So that's why, Paroma, to what you're saying, my path has been from the business side over to the technology side. And actually, if you look at the rest of my trajectory, I've actually kind of moved more and more towards technology side because I started with business intelligence, reporting, analytics. And then now, if you look at my portfolio, I'm actually managing our enterprise planning system at Rivian. And then I have the data warehouse charter under me. And then I also have reporting and analytics. So it's kind of, I grew in that direction. But yeah, in terms of learnings, I am a firm believer in always learning. So never settle. So that kind of helps you, I feel, to figure out, okay, even if a particular role is not happy, that's not your happy place, you have the ability to explore multiple options as long as you know what your adjacent teams are doing and what your interests are, and you constantly have that curiosity in your mind, right? So to learn and grow. That's one. The second part, like I said, having the champions, knowing who your champions are in the organization, cultivating those relationships do matter, because even if they cannot offer you a job, they can guide you the right way. If you know that, okay, there is a certain transition that you would like to look for, whether you are going through a riff or whether you genuinely want to grow in a different direction, they can really help you or connect you with the people who can help you. That's what I've always found in my experience. The other part is, like I said, always stay open. You never know. Sometimes opportunities just come your way. Like the Rivian opportunity literally came my way. I wasn't looking for it, but then it just so happened that I was really interested in the EV space. And when they came to me, I started the conversation. It just so happened that they wanted my analytics background and I was interested in the EV space and the growth potential of the company. So that's kind of how that opportunity came about. And that was, again, yet another pivot, but from an industry perspective, right? So from the longest time I was in financial services, and then I pivoted to Rivian. And quite frankly, it's been a very challenging experience for me. The last 1 year, I would say, has been the most challenging for me. And I'm still going through that because changing industries is not easy. And you have to know your industry if you have to be effective in analytics and storytelling. So those are my learnings. And I kind of went in a different direction slightly there, but I hope that was clear.
That was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Saritha. I was actually going to ask you, was it stressful during these pivots? And you did say it's non-linear. So you probably didn't have a lot of clarity when you were back in Visa that you would be here with Rivian. Was it stressful during the journey to make these changes?
Stress, I think personally, I am not the kind of, this is a personality thing too, right? So I shouldn't say I don't stress, but I'm very comfortable working in gray areas. So there have been many times when I've done my career pivots, change in roles. My role wasn't exactly well defined. Mm-hmm. So literally, like there's this one lady who hired me. She was like, she said, Saritha, there is no clarity in this role. You have the freedom to define the role however you feel fit. And that's kind of, to me, it is an opportunity, right? Some people may struggle with that. Some people see it as an opportunity. I think viewing it as an opportunity always results in big benefits. At least it has for me. So that's how I approach any problem. I see it as an opportunity. And that's how I see it, Rivian, too. I really did struggle for the first 6 to 8 months because I had no idea what people were talking about when they talk about factory gates, production numbers, the issues with inventory. I had never worked on it. I've always worked in financial services. So literally I had to sit down with people. So this is another thing, like how willing are you to sit with people and learn? I literally used to have meetings with people at the analyst level and say, okay, tell me, what are you doing? And then how does this work? So a lot of that going down into the details becomes important, especially as you're changing direction, because you have to admit that you are learning something new, right? And then approach that, I would say, approach that with the mindset of a new learner. Anything you learn is a challenge. I think it really depends on what you're willing to put into it. And that's what you get out of it eventually.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay, so we will now move to the next second anchor question. So Rahul, this is again for you. Your top tips for the audience on what steps to take if they want to, or if they're faced with a career pivot now. What are the top things they can do to ease their journey?
Interesting question. It all depends on their journey, in terms of their career journey, where they are. And I also find that a lot of the decisions will also depend on their personal journey as well, where they are in their life at this point of time. That's number one. Number two, they need to figure out in terms of what are their strengths and weakness. Typically, I always say, look at Zohari window. What you know, what you know, what you don't know, what you don't know, and what's like totally unknown, right? Everybody should do that analysis. Sometimes the things are that, oh, I like this particular area, but is it that area where your strength lies? Is something analysis needs to be done. Talk to your peers, talk to people who you know, talk to your family, talk to yourself. It's very important that you should know yourself, your strength, and then you make a decision. I think it's possible to make any changes. Also analyze your risk, also analyze what you want to achieve by changing that, whatever you're looking for. Are you trying to change the industry? Are you really just trying to be in the same job for longer run? Can you do it at this time of your career? Can you do it at this age? So all factors you should need to evaluate.
But that seems like a lot of information, Rahul. And when I hear you say that, it scares me. What if I'm scared to do all that? What is the what is the one step, if I'm really scared to do this pivot, how do I do it?
I say, believe yourself. If you believe you can do it, just go for it.
Okay. That's encouraging. That's encouraging. And you've done it. So you have proof points for everyone to see. That's wonderful. Saritha, over to you. Same question.
Yeah, I would always say, understand. So like to what Rahul was saying, it just reminded me, there's a friend of mine who always does SWOT analysis for anything, like even in personal life and professional life. I'm not saying we all should do that. I don't do that, but something to consider, because he was telling me, I was talking to him last year, and he was like, Saritha, it really works. You should do it. And he literally has a SWOT. So we all have different ways of doing that. I personally always think that you should talk to people who know you very well, like to exactly what Rahul was saying, right? Whether it is, I think mostly you should go with people who believe in you and who can work with you and who can give you honest feedback, because sometimes we may want to do something, but that may not be our strength, right? And you may aspire to be something, but then maybe it'll take you more time to get there. You're not there yet, right? Which is where feedback and honesty and being honest with yourself becomes very, very important. That is one. I think the other part of it is, what else would I say? Again, I personally believe that people can learn most things that they put their minds to it. So that ensuring that you are continuing to invest in yourself, to me, it's very important, no matter what stage of your career you are at. The one thing that really did resonate with me, what Rahul just said, is on the personal front, right? Because at times you are professionally, you are ready, but personally, you may not be ready. Just one thing to share, like personally for me, was when I moved to Rivian was when I filed for my divorce. So it was literally like the day that I joined was the day that I filed. It was not planned, but it just so happened, right? And I think all of us here have gone through that, so you all can understand how challenging it is. So I've gone through the career change as well as industry change, as well as the personal change at the same time. not something that I would advise anybody to do after having been through that. It worked out okay for me in the end. I mean, right now I'm at a stable place, but generally these are things that we should consider, right? Because for me, I just brought it upon myself. I chose to do that. I stuck with it and it worked for me. But something we should all think about, right? What is it that you can take personally at any given point in time and professionally at any given point in time? What is the risk you're willing to take? And are you willing to stick to it to the end? It's a very personal decision at the end of the day for everybody.
Wow, that must have been quite a period in your life. I'm sure you'll never forget some of those experiences. But hindsight is 2020, right? So
it made me strong. Let's just say that.
Thank you for sharing that. It's not easy. Let's go to the audience questions for a little bit, and then we come back if we have time. So the first, we have actually quite a few questions. So the first question is this: what were some initial pitfalls or challenges or unknowns that you had to face, and how did you overcome them? Who wants to go first?
You want me to try?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So sales, right? We talk sales, right? So the biggest thing in sales is rejection. Yeah. I was knowing that rejection is a key, but I was not ready for it. You're trying to do the best pitch possible and you're rejected, right? So it's you need to be mentally tough. I was told, but whether I was ready for it, I'm not sure. So every day, once you get rejected, you feel dejected, saying that, hey, I missed it. I don't know how I'm going to meet my quota, how my manager is going to evaluate me, and so on and so forth. But one thing which helped me was that I always used to talk to my manager, who became my friend too in the longer run. And every day I used to talk about me, my emotions, what went through. He used to say that take day by day. Okay. Next day would be different. So again, get up, again, go with the same rigor and try to pitch to the customer. If you pitch to one, pitch to second, third one, and so on and so forth. And trust me, it helped. It helped a lot. So rejection is the biggest thing in sales, which you have to learn, which I was not, I would say, tuned to. I always used to get what I used to do before in the execution, right? So that's one thing I would like to highlight from my perspective.
Wow. Saritha, any comments from you?
Yeah. Challenges, unknowns. I mean, I see unknowns there, but I can talk about challenges because, as I said, I do have an engineering background, but I've never really been a developer, right? I did my MBA after my engineering, so I hadn't really touched and coded like ages. So when I actually moved in and I had to start managing a team of developers, it's never easy. So you have to win their confidence, because having the team have the confidence that you can lead them is just something that you have to earn at the end of the day. So that to me was the biggest challenge. It took me a while. I took classes, and then I actually did talk to my VP at the time. I said, need help. And then and I was also a new manager, right? So it all kind of came together. But to me, that was the biggest thing, like earning the trust of the team technically, that I'm actually able to guide them and upskill myself. That was a big thing. Although I had enough skills to be able to move into the role, but it took me time and effort to be able to prove that there is that element that I can guide them using the skills and knowledge that I have.
That's interesting. So you both found people that were willing to invest in you despite not having 100% skill set match. Is that luck, or what did you do to get those people on your side? Or is it a little bit of both?
In my case, it's a little bit of both. I think it's about, I think this is maybe a little bit of anomaly. I never say that I've ever worked for a really bad manager. I think the only person that I reported to who I wouldn't consider a good manager, like my manager, was somebody who managed me for like 2 months. But any manager who I've reported to for the longer time, I've always had good rapport with them. I think it's a two-way street at the end of the day, whether it's a manager or anybody senior. You put something to them, and then they will invest in you. When they see potential, generally people do invest in you, is what I feel. It's not, luck is a part of it, right? That your paths cross. That is the part of luck. What you do with that is up to you. And to me, networking is not just about, because I know people generally view networking differently, but for me, I've always found that the best place is when you have a personal connection. And then when that is there, then you can actually literally go tell the person, okay, I need your help, right? So it takes a little bit of time. It's just like personal connections, right? In your same thing with professional, it's never separate, I feel. That has been my experience.
Rahul, anything from you?
So I think communication is the key. I have never found people saying no to me when I start talking to them. So I don't know, maybe it's just me or so luckily I got every manager who is like happy to discuss, happy to talk, happy to converse throughout, and have been pretty guiding in a perspective. Maybe the way you ask question back sometimes matter the most. So Touchwood has been good managers so far, I would say.
Very nice.
Yeah, I do think the element of vulnerability becomes important even in professional life, has been my experience.
Very nice. I'm making notes as you speak.
That's a very good point, actually.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. Thank you. Okay, the next question is from Hema. Hema says that she is a senior analytics manager in marketing, and she loves the business side of her work more than the tech side. So she asks both of you, what should she explore next? Should she go for sales or should she go for product?
There should be more questions to her in terms of
yeah, please ask.
What's your interest? And when you say you're more towards, towards business side, what do you like about business side?
Hema, are you able to come off mute? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been supporting salespeople for the last, 6-7 years when I was home leader. So I like how close they are to the actual customers. And same with the product. Like I've seen a lot of people moving from analytics to these two, which is more strategic. I mean, like, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm okay. So the more important my work is, I feel encouraged to give more. So I feel analytics is like a support to product or strategy. So like, how should I look at this?
So I have another question. What do you dislike about salespeople?
Dislike about like how it looks like a man's world, like sort of thing,
Very good. Very good.
That is one thing, and it takes a lot of connections. You should look trust to like lot goes on based on how you look to people. You know what I mean? Like how people perceive you.
Very good point. I've not seen a lot of female sales leader, and that's the first thing which strikes them. Okay, that it's a male dominated field. But it's don't think like that. I think more you need to look at is you need to a little bit immerse yourself more into it. Sorry, the light's behaving very weirdly at my end. You have to immerse yourself more into figuring out what sales really involve. Do you have flair for it? And can you sustain the rejections? The first thing which I told you about.
I think I can handle rejections, but it's the social part of it, like, where a lot of business happen over, a cup of beer. Or that's what I hear about it. So the vendor relationship.
So let me tell you, when I joined sales in 2013, okay, I was vegetarian. I never used to drink. Okay. But I still was able to spend time. I never used to travel. Okay. And I never used to be in late night meetings. Okay.
How did you develop that?
Till 2018. Till 2018. Okay. but I changed myself from 2018. I'm like, I drink, I have non everything, right? But it was not by force of my job. It was
Okay,
my
got it.
choice. Okay.
Mm,
So it's a myth that you need to drink, you need to socialize. No, there are
mhm,
people who will listen to whether you have a conviction or not,
mhm.
and you are able to bring right things to the table or not.
Got it. So it's all about delivering results, even then.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
And
That's
Hema,
very
one thing to
encouraging.
yeah, one thing to
Saritha, like I mean, your journey is very close to mine, and my question is relevant to you too. I mean, like, I'd love to hear your thing about it. So, since you switched from product to analytics, I was surprised. Like, what was in your mind about like when you made that switch?
For me, I'm like I said, I enjoy the solutioning part of it.
Got it.
For product, I couldn't see because for me it's all about what drives you, right? For me, when I go in day to day, there are certain things about my job that gives me satisfaction when I'm solving a problem and I'm creating something new. Um, that to me, at the time when I was at Visa, I saw that more on the analytics side because the function was being built ground up and we were building data products. To me, although technically, so if you look at it, I'm still in product, but I'm building data products, right? So at Visa, primarily my job was around building larger scale data products that would go in front of our clients. So it was still client facing, right? But it wasn't a product role where where I was going with when I was initiated my comment, when I was about to comment on your on what you were saying, my 2 cents would be look at your industry. The industry you are in, based on the industry you are in, the sales job could be very different. And that's what I've noticed. Like, for instance, if you are in an enterprise software products versus a SaaS product versus, I don't know, like versus Visa, like I can talk about Visa or PayPal, which is more B2B, the nature of the business becomes very different. Nature of sales role is different. The nature of product role is different. So something for you to consider is, one is the function itself, and the other one is, what does that function do in your industry? So they can be very, very different from
So
industry.
what is the main question I need to ask Saritha to understand the difference between, like, I see the day-to-day responsibilities of these two roles,
Yeah.
but like I want to understand like which would suit me more. So.
Yeah, what motivates you though? Because this is something that you need to do a lot of introspection on, right? Because you need to, but a lot of answers come when you look inwards. This has been my experience. But and you need to really spend time with yourself to find the answers that you're looking for, right? Maybe one thing to do is to really sit and write down and say, what do you like about your current role? Because I'm sure there are things that you enjoy about what you do today as well, right? Because assuming you've been doing that for a while. And then you identify what do you enjoy in sales, what do you enjoy in product. I'm just giving you a framework that is coming to my mind right now, right? What do you enjoy in sales, that based on what you see? What do you enjoy in product, based on what you see? And then based on your current skills, what can you transfer to either of these roles, right? And so part of it is what motivates you. Part of it is what is the current skill set that you have that is easily transferable to either of them.
Got it.
I have one more idea for you, Hema. A lot of what is fun in a job is the day-to-day aspect of it. So I would say, talk to a product person. What does a typical day look like? Are those fun things for you to do? Then talk to a salesperson. Where do they spend the day? What does the hour by hour look like? And see if you see yourself there. When you hear the texture of what a day-to-day looks like, you'll see whether in your mind you fit that or not, whether it drives you or not. So that's
okay.
Another thing that I have seen.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was about to say that some companies, I don't know which company you work at, but some of the companies are more receptive to internal movement and exploration than others. Like, for instance, I personally know people who have moved from product sales to technology. Like, they have done the round and then they figure it out. Because sometimes I personally know a lady who was in product who moved to HR. So there are people who do all kinds of transitions. So sometimes it might just be good to see if there is a cross functional opportunity in your organization. So maybe you
Mhm.
explore sales for 6 months and then see if that's something that works for you. Maybe you'll figure out that it doesn't. Maybe you'll find that it does, right?
Mhm.
That is a way to explore if you don't have clarity on where you need to go.
Got it. Okay, makes sense,
Think-
Saritha. Look, I used to do shadow work to understand sales job. Now I think I need to try to learn a little more about product before I make that decision. Thank you. Thank you for the suggestions.
We have
Appreciate
3 more questions, so we're going to go rapid. So yeah, please finish your thought, Rahul, and then we'll go rapid fire.
What Saritha
Three
said
more.
was pretty right in terms of the data product itself is a pretty vast field, right? Which product, and then when you become a product manager or go towards product side, how do you define product? What product definition you want to really work on? That's also a critical answer to get.
Yep.
Because some
Makes
product work can be really boring, quite frankly, that I've seen. Some can be very exciting.
Okay, thank you, Saritha.
For me, that is. I mean, I'm just saying that I'm sure that's
For
the case for everyone.
everyone, I think the same job can be very boring or very exciting depending on who you are and the people you're around sometimes, right? All right, we'll move to the next one. So Abhi's question, for some, career pivoting is a choice, but at this time, especially for many people, it's a force and limited options decision. So what do such people need to keep in mind? What are some key things they should keep in mind while accepting a new role? And we're going rapid fire because there's 2 more questions to wrap up. Yeah.
What is driving at this point of time? Sustain. Are you on visa? You need to sustain a visa. You need to get money in your pocket. What is driving you? Just get a job. If just get a job, just go
Yeah.
forward with.
Yeah. Assuming the factor is that you've lost your job right now, and if you do not have any cushion of financial security, then yeah, I agree with,
So you're
Rahul, but
saying
yeah.
that for a temporary time, take whatever comes your way and then use that leeway, use that buffer to plan longer term. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Time you have on your hand. Do you have 6 months? Do you have 1 year? Or do you have 2 months to survive?
Yeah. Everything depends on, it stems from the constraints that you operate from. I got it. Thank you. A question from Neil. Any thoughts on the importance of continuing education, like an MBA or certificate courses, and their relevance in today's workforce?
My view is that every day the industry changes, right? So if you pick up a one job within 2 years, it's no more relevant. You're not relevant. You have to keep on upgrading yourself. Do training. And like I worked with Infosys for 6 years, right? The best part I used to like was that we used to have a certification, we used to have a level. In spite of my role in the organization, I used to appear for certifications. Like I was a program project manager, senior project manager, but I used to write a .NET based a solution diagram for passing an exam. So you always have to upgrade yourself. Don't stop. Learning goes throughout the life.
बहुत मेहनत करते हो आप तो. Saritha, do you agree with Rahul?
I completely agree. I think learning can be soft skills or hard skills, right? Either. I think there is value in either, in both, actually. Certificate courses, personally, I feel it depends on the roles that you're in. Sometimes they help, sometimes in certain technical roles, they definitely help because you're a proof point for your expertise and proficiency. Soft skills are a little bit different. I personally, I invest a lot in having difficult conversations, negotiations. So it all depends on what you see fit. But yeah, constantly investing in yourself is important.
Yeah,
Well,
and I feel also that for soft skills, the skills erode over time. So I need to constantly practice and keep coming back to the same ones over and over. Sorry, Rahul, go ahead.
I was saying मेहनत का फल मीठा होता है.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, the last question we have again is from Hema. Have you ever been burnt out? It does take more effort to pivot. So did you ever feel like pausing or taking a break?
Very good question. So when I changed, I used to work 16 hours. Very tough. Maybe I am in PhirSe, maybe because of that reason, very honestly, it's allowed to happen. That's honest statement of mine. So you have to be careful when you change.
Sorry to hear that.
That's how it is.
Yeah. Saritha, how about you?
Say similar. So when I moved to analytics, I was working because I had to prove myself. It was a new function. It was a new team. The team as a manager on the team, I had to prove myself and my team as well. So I was working. This was when I just had my son, by the way. My son was a year and a half old when I got the promotion. So I used to take care of him. And then at night, I would be working till 2 on most days, most nights. And then on some weekends too. So he was a baby. So I had to make sure I was spending time with him as well. So, and he would fall sick and all of that drama, right? So I think, but then the way to think about it is you have to go through that until you are establishing yourself in the new role, until you prove yourself. Once that phase is done, then you're going to settle into whichever rhythm you want to settle into. So think of it as a 6 to 1 month investment that you're doing for your career, I would say. That's how I used to think about it. And the same thing here too, as part of my industry change too at Rivian, right? It's been a longer one. Like I said, this has been the most challenging pivot for me. Like a year, right? A good year. I'm still learning. But I see it as an investment. And part of the thing is also, if you're not challenged at work, then what's the fun in it, right? I mean, at least for me, I feel that way. Mentally challenged, it's important for me.
Yeah.
So that's my perspective.
They have a term called sweat equity, that you're sweating in a new role, you're building up that equity. So it's not just, you're putting that time in yourself and your relationships. It's going to yield at some point in the future that you don't see now, but it is going to come, right? All right, so that was all our questions. Any last comments from either of you or from anyone on here right now? If not,
anybody has done career pivot in the audience, actually, they can share their journey as well quickly.
Yeah, if anyone wants to speak up, please do. Hi,
Sure.
Saritha.
Hi. Yeah, I have done. So I was an engineer. Then I did my MBA and switched over to management. I was in big banks. Then I switched over to fintech. So I'm in fintech now. So I have done quite a bit of, in fact, before even engineer, I was just a machine operator. So I have done a lot of career switches. To Hema's question, which is a kind of a very fundamental question, that how do we decide whether I want to change the career? What is the right time? What career I want to switch to? I would say 3 things. I mean, Saritha and Rahul did cover that, but just kind of summarizing that. One is your skill set. And the later you are in career and the more established you are in the current career, that becomes most important, because it's generally better to take advantage of your strengths rather than try to develop the weakness all the time, especially if you are very much matured and you have had a lot of experience. So one is your skill set, what you are good at doing it. Second is where is your passion, right? What you like doing it. And the third one is the opportunity in the industry and in what you are doing, right? So for example, analytics might be fast growing compared with something else. For example, if you want to go in sales, usually it's much more product focused or industry focused. You develop an expertise in one product or one domain, then you become good at it, but it's almost like a PhD, that it's difficult to be a generalist. But if you're an analyst, you can be a generalist. So those are the 3 things I would focus on: your skill set, your passion, and opportunity of the industry, the growth in the industry, and so on and so forth. That's about it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
The only thing that I'll add to that is thank you, Saritha. That was beautiful. And thank you to both of our panelists too, and Paroma for leading this. So in my case too, there have been some pivots, started in finance and accounting. And from there, now I do healthcare and governance work, right? So it's a completely different shift from where I started off with and what my education was. But the way I think of it, the way I saw it was that it was like I was building on to what things that I already knew, things that I already was doing. I was building on to them. I was adding to that. I was adding to my skill set. So a lot of what I did in finance is still a part of my role. It's probably 10% or 20% of it, right? So basically it was those skill sets that I carried on. And then with the course of learning and growth and educating myself, challenging myself, whatever it is, I kind of got to this point where, now I am able to do governance and regulatory work. So that's kind of how I see it. But then in my case, those were all my choices to make. So I had the time to think about, plan, prepare for it and everything, and then kind of get here. So,
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your stories. Very, very helpful. All right, so we will conclude it here. The reason I keep looking back is my cat is scratching the door trying to get in. So I'm going to stop the recording now.
That's your time.
And sorry?
That's your timer.
Yes, that is my timer. So I'm going to stop the recording.